It's Whack Animative here to present you with What If Issei Had Venom Part 4. Let's go ahead and get into it. Currently, Issei Hyodo is heading towards Kyohai, thinking in his head about what he did yesterday to Sir Prancelot, absolutely beating the ever-loving shit out of him, and then literally giving him the ultimate wedgie, hanging him up on a tree, getting a stick, and beating the absolute shit out of this man, and making it to where jelly filling spilled everywhere. Well, at least that's what he liked to think, but that definitely wasn't no jelly filling. He thought in his head. While Venom also laughed as they were talking in his head. Venom immediately said, "So, what are you going to do about the ORC? You know they're not going to stop bothering you, right?" While Issei said, "Yeah, that's why today I'm confronting them. As soon as possible, I'm going to confront them, considering if they're from the supernatural, well, if they're from the supernatural, then I want to know exactly what I'm going against. I want to know everything that they can tell me or what I can get off of them. After all, I don't know that much, considering I just got you, like, not even 2 days ago." While Venom says, "Yeah, that's correct. But anyway, what are you going to do about the bitch boy?" While Issei says, "Oh, I have plans for him," and immediately starts laughing very, very insanely, in his head and outside, causing Venom to go to the back of his mind and say, "Scary," while a figment of Michael Jackson was beside him and said, "Hee, that man's scary," while Venom just ended up saying, "Michael Jackson, that you?" And Michael Jackson was just gone, and he said, I'm still hallucinating, aren't I?" While Issei just says in his head, No, I don't think that was a hallucination. I heard Michael Jackson also." While walking towards the front of the school, he said this in his head. As soon as he walks into the school campus, walks 1 foot directly in front of the gate, everyone gives him dirty glares. He immediately pulls out a camera from his backpack, starts taking pictures of him, and then literally starts to get the pictures off and throw them in the air, scattering them everywhere and saying, "Hey, why don't you all take a picture? After all, it'll last longer than how most of you guys last in bed." Immediately, a lot of people just said, "Oh," and a lot of men were just offended on this. And then he said, "Oh, that'll also last way, way longer than most of you girls. After all, most of you girls are probably going to be high school dropouts from how you end up dropping them panties for any guy you see. All you sluts," he says, out loud, causing a lot of people to be offended. And then he proceeds to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry if I offended you, but I don't care," he says, while he walks into the front of the school. While Venom says, "Wow, that was something." While Issa said, "They had it coming." And Venom said, "Yeah, they did, but don't you think that's a little bit too cruel?" While both Issei and Venom stopped their conversation in his head. There was like a silence for a full minute before they both started laughing in his head, and they said, "Fuck no," at the same time. As Issei walks all the way up the stairs when he goes into the building, goes into his classroom, straight up sits down at his desk, and no one says anything. They just try to avoid contact from him, except for Konako, who just stares directly at the back of this man's head, which was so intense of a stare. Issei felt as if the back of his head was gonna melt. He looked behind him, sees Konako just looking away, just looks in front of him, looks behind him, and he just looks away at it every time he looks behind him, until all of a sudden he just looks in front of him. She stares directly behind him, and he says, "Venom," in his head. While Venom says, "Yeah, I want you to pop out behind me and scare the absolute shit out of Konako. Okay?" And immediately Venom says, "Yeah, that sounds nice." And immediately he popped out from Issei's back, like this black liquid popped out from Issei's back and formed a face, and it was directly in front of Konako's face. Like, it was directly in front of her in matters of seconds. And Konako immediately screams, saying, "What the fuck is that?" While literally jumping all the way at the ceiling, trying to grab the ceiling fan that was spinning, but accidentally getting her head hit by the ceiling fan, falling to the ground, and then face planting very hard. And Issei immediately puts up his two fingers, puts them together, and says, "Nice," before snapping his fingers. And everyone just looking at Konako, thinking, what just happened? While Konako face planted so hard that she got knocked the fuck out. And Issei was just laughing as hard as possible. And a few hours later, it's now cooking class. And Issei is currently trying to cook some cookies since he was literally forced to go into the cooking class because there was no other class that he could take for his optional class without being consistently glared at. While Konako is staring directly at Issei, like in the back of his head, while she's trying to bake some cookies, immediately Issei just looks behind him and sees her still staring at him. He immediately pulls out a picture from his back pocket of him. He hands it to Konako and says, "Here you go. I caught you looking at me. I know I'm good looking and everything, but that's a little creepy." He immediately hands her the photo. She just says, I don't want this. While Issa says, "Well, I don't want a creepy lolly stalker staring at me all the time, but hey, we don't get what we want all the time." As he slaps the picture directly into her face, causing some people to look at him and glare, while he just looks at them and glares back, and they all just sit back in their chair, just continues making the cookies that they're making. And he says, "Yeah, that's what I thought." And Issei just continuously makes the cookies before looking behind him, seeing she's still staring at this man. And he just says in his mind, "Hey, Venom." And Venom just says, "Yeah." And then he says, "We about to end this woman's whole career." As she starts to focus more into making cookies, Venom just pops out of nowhere and like directly out of Issei's shoulder, sneakily detaches a piece of himself and makes that piece literally just shimmer all the way into Konako's cookie. As soon as she finishes making the cookies, as soon as Venom's piece went into the cookie dough and she made it, she literally was about to taste test the cookie. And right when she picked up the cookie, after it was done, about to bite into it, all of a sudden the cookie changed form, and it had Venom eyes and Venom teeth, and it looked at Konako, and said, "In in Japan, you eat cookie. In Russia, cookie eat you." It says, and Konako can just see the sharp teeth, and it starts to try to bite at Konako. Konako just throws the cookie, just starts shaking and falls to the ground and says, "I didn't know cookies could do that." And Issa just sees this and starts laughing. She's like doing a mental breakdown right now. Then Issei just says, "You know what? We're just gonna terrorize Konako the entire day." And they proceed to do that. Time skip. Currently, Issei's at lunch, getting his tray, walking all the way back to that one tree, sits down, starts to eat his food alone. Then he sees Konako directly beside him. And then he says, "Wow, now she's following me at lunch. And Venom just says, I guess you're a pussy magnet." While Issei says, "Why do I feel like that's a joke in a different sense?" While Venom says, I don't know. As they're talking in their head, and Konako's just staring directly at Issei. Immediately, Issei thinks in his head, "Hey, Venom, I have an idea." And then all of a sudden, Konako pulls out a chocolate bar. She unwraps it, and Issei says, "Oh my god, look over there. It's a bird." While saying, "It's a bird, it's a plane," while looking in the sky. She says, "Wait, what?" She looks up in the sky, and all of a sudden, Venom like pops out of Issei's side and just bites in the chocolate bar. And just literally eats the entire chocolate bar out of Konako's hand before she could even tell. And then she immediately looks back and says, "Oh, that was nothing." She bites directly into the chocolate bar that was supposed to be there, but just bites into thin air. Didn't even look at the chocolate bar. The worst part about it, though, was the fact she pulled out another chocolate bar. As soon as she unwrapped it, let's just go ahead and say she was not expecting the chocolate bar to have a face, because Venom detached itself and attached itself to the chocolate bar in her pocket. As soon as she unwrapped the chocolate bar, all she saw was Venom's eyes and face on the chocolate bar, and as soon as it unwrapped, the chocolate bar just said, "Surprise, motherfucker!" And Konako just yeeted the chocolate bar. And Venom says, "Oh shit, Issei, help!" And Issei immediately started laughing. The fact that she chucked Venom so far, that piece of Venom so far. Issei and Venom were laughing at just the pure chaos that was unfolding. Honestly, it was quite hilarious to watch, though. And Kodako was just having a panic attack, thinking about, I hate so many chocolate bars, I didn't know they could talk. Issei just laughed because she said that out loud. Until all of a sudden, Kiba decides to take his chance and walk up towards Issei. He walks up towards Issei and says, "Hello there," while Issei looks directly at his face and says, "Oh, you came back for round two." While he says, "No, no, no, we just want to talk. Please meet us in the ORC." And Issei just says, "Well, General Kenobi, you're quite the bold one, aren't you?" And immediately, as soon as he said that, Kiba says, "I feel like that's a reference to something I don't get." While Issei says, "Yeah, it's a reference, and you about wouldn't get the reference as much as you don't get pussy." And immediately, Kiba just said, "You didn't have to go that low, man." And Issei said, "Yeah, yeah. Well, just go ahead and take me to your orgy club, whatever it was." And Kiba says, "It's not an orgy club." And he just, you know what, just gives up. He just sighs and says, "You know what, just call it whatever you want." And Issei says, "Okay, I was gonna do that anyway, but hey, didn't really need permission for that. Kinda takes all the joy out of it." And Kiba says, "Does it really?" And Issei says, "No, not really." As he follows Kiba all the way towards the ORC. And as soon as Issei opens the door to the ORC, which he found the ORC building very creepy, he looks aside towards Kiba and says, You sure that this isn't like a church or anything? Because there's probably like a lot of kids in there, I'm guessing." And immediately Kiba just said, "No, no, and why would you?" And Issei said, I was just asking, man. Don't be so offended." And he immediately tries to open the door, but all of a sudden, the person that's narrating this stops the video, and that's all you get for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you like it, and make sure you smash that subscribe button. Alright? Wacky Anime What If?